Today we'll talk about power. That's the significant part of today's message, which, by the way, will be very interactive. We are to display God's power on the earth. Felt needs. We are to meet the felt needs of our community. As Jenna addressed that last week when she talked about the feeding of 5,000. Righteous standard. We'll talk about that we are to represent and live a biblical and different standard upon the earth from the rest of the people. Justice. We're to do justice, which is desired by the Lord. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 3. And finally, proclaim. We are to proclaim the Lord, or the good news of Jesus to everyone, everywhere. So if you'll turn your Bibles today to Luke chapter 6. Luke chapter 8. What I said to you in the introduction to this series is that we'll be talking about the first 4 weeks about the life of Christ. How Jesus interacted with the community in which he lived in. So if you could imagine Jesus, how do you think about Jesus? When you think about Jesus, how do you picture him in your mind? A radical. Oh, I love that. Is that what you said, a radical? That is not the answer I usually get when I ask the question. Right? So oftentimes, you may have seen somewhere along the line this picture painted of Christ. Soft brown hair, soft beard, kind of a whitish looking guy, right? Now, painted in 1942, actually. That is not what Jesus looked like at all, right? He was dark, he was Mediterranean, he was rough-hewn, he was a carpenter by trade. He pushed back against the status quo all the time. He's the guy that hung out with the bad crowd, you know what I'm saying? When the religious people were around, he had aught with them. Why? Because they fallen into something called hypocrisy. Okay, so now Jesus is among the people. I want you to look at this, chapter 8, verse 40. Jesus returned. I'm going to ask you to look at your Bible, either by your phone or device or whatever. And as Jesus returned, the people welcomed him, for they had all been waiting for him. And there was a man named Jairus, and he was an official of the synagogue. And he fell at Jesus' feet and began to implore him to come to his house. Now, I want you to know that Jairus was a pretty important man. So when an important man invites you to his house, how many of you know that you go? You go. Not only do you go because he's an important man, but more significant than that is Jesus only did what the Father told him to do. So Jesus was consistently in communication with the Father and always obeyed what the Father told him to do and only what the Father told him to do. So if it was not the will of the Father to go to Jairus' house, Jesus would have said, no, go another way. So, the guy falls at his feet. I'm not sure if anybody's ever fallen at your feet before, but there's something about people falling at your feet. It gets your attention, first of all, and it humbles you secondly. All right, verse 42. For he had an only daughter about 12 years old, and she was dying. But as he went, the crowds were pressing against him. Some information is brought out here. Number one, he has an only daughter. I have 5 daughters. Every one of my 5 daughters is absolutely precious to me. I couldn't imagine having an only daughter and they were dying. It's not like she wasn't like a 35-year-old girl. She was 12 years old. Something about having a 12-year-old little girl, absolutely defenseless. And sometimes what happens is we look at the Gospels, we read them, we become so familiar with them, we lose the importance, we lose the power of the text. Don't lose the power of the text here. A man, broken-hearted, absolutely, his only kid, 12 years old, dying. When your child's sick, you'll do crazy things. You'll go to the ends of the earth to save your child. That's what this man was doing. Officer, official, bowing down to the dirt before this man named Jesus. Why? Because he would do anything to save his daughter. And a woman who had hemorrhage for 12 years, interesting 12 years is used here, right? It's used twice. But why do you think that's significant? Why would it be significant that 12 is used here? 12 years, the woman has been hemorrhaging. Listen, I don't even want to imagine that in my mind. Anybody hemorrhaging for 12 years, I don't want to think about that. That makes me dizzy just to think about it, honestly. 12-year-old girl. Why is it 12 a significant number in the Bible? Remember I said this is interactive.
12 tribes. 12 tribes. The 12 tribes.
Right? Yeah. Okay. So, let's name them. Just for fun, let's name the 12 tribes. 12 disciples. We'll come back there. Okay. Reuben. Simeon. Levi. Judah. Issachar. Gad. Asher. Naphtali. Dan. Joseph. Benjamin. And missed Issachar. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So the 12 tribes lay the foundation of the Old Testament, right? Then you have the 12 disciples in the New Testament. What else is 12 significant of?
When Jesus started his ministry, when he got lost.
So Jesus is 12 years old, right? In Luke chapter 2, he shows up at the temple because they're making Aliyah. The pilgrims are going. And then he goes to the temple steps. He confounds the Jewish scholars. 12.
The foundation of Jerusalem wall.
Okay, so now we have the 12 foundations in the holy city and the 12 gates of the holy city.
Yeah.
How do you measure your year? 12 months, right? Yeah, so 12 is a significant number of the Bible. So now you have this woman who's been bleeding for 12 years. And could not be healed by anyone. You know what it's like when you want a second opinion? And the doc says, well, that doesn't look so good. You say, well, catch you later, doc. Let me get another opinion. So this woman had a number of opinions. And everybody tried, but nobody could stop the bleeding. So what I want to talk to you about today is power. So what the world is looking for is a church that has power. Right? So oftentimes, we don't display the power of God. How we meet, oftentimes, how people come to Christ as they see power. Mm-hmm. So if you know what it's like to be in Africa, there's power everywhere, man. There's shamans, there's witch doctors, there's all kind of stuff going on. There's power broker going on all the time. So if you're in parts of the world like that, you better have display some power to have any validity to the people that you're speaking to. Verse 44. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his cloak, and immediately her hemorrhage stopped. Wow! You know, here's what happens with the Bible. You read it, and sometimes you forget how wow it is. Don't stop being wowed by the Bible. The woman bleeds for 12 years. That's a long time to have a blood deal. And now, in one moment, one touching of the fringes of the garment, she stops bleeding just like that. It ought to do something to us. It ought to somehow say, Jesus, I want to be just like you. I want to have that kind of power pulsating through me, just like you have. So in Numbers chapter 15, verse 28, it says this. If you're a Jewish person, you had to have fringes on your garments. You may know some Jewish people, they have the prayer hinges, fringes hanging down from their dress pants or whatever. Right. Well, in the Old Testament, there are 613 laws. In the Mosaic Code, there are 613 laws that God gave to the people. And you have to obey all those laws. When the rabbis, only certain rabbis are qualified to make the fringes of the prayer garments. There are 613, watch me now, there are 613 movements of your hand to make the fringes on any Jewish garment. Then, like today, you have to move your hand 613 times to make the fringe. The fringe was there, according to the book of Numbers, to remind the people of God, the Jewish people, that they were God's possession. So the lowest point of Jesus that day, on lowest point of the ground, was the fringes of the garment. And she just reached out, she just touched him just like that. And just like that, healing took place. In the New Testament, in the book of Acts, it says, Peter would walk down the road, and the shadow of Peter would cross over people, and they would be healed. So, just this week, well, I'm struggling to remember the story now. Just this week in Indonesia, which is like 0.1% Christian, a miraculous healing just took place in the Foursquare Church in Indonesia last week. A phenomenal, extraordinary healing took place. I was talking with somebody last week, and they said that they had gone to Indonesia, Beverly, a car, some of you know her. Beverly car was in Indonesia, and they were driving, the tour bus was driving down the road, and they are almost all Muslim, right? So the tour director said, oh, there's a Catholic church. They come and spread their propaganda here. That's how things look in Indonesia. This is 98% Muslim. So how many of you know what would happen if miracles started happening in Indonesia? What would happen if miracles started happening in Roselle? In the mid-90s, there was I have been privileged in my life to have been involved in many revivals. I came to Christ during the charismatic revival, in the early 1970s. And there was miracles happening everywhere. I had the opportunity to be very close to the ministry of Catherine Kuhlman. Thousands of people would come to ask for prayer, and she would pray for them, and they would be healed. Thousands of people walked out of wheelchairs and all kind of contraptions. In the mid-1990s, I was involved in the Brownsville revival in Florida. Literally, people by the thousands and thousands and thousands would come to the Brownsville revival. You know why? Because there was power there. It wasn't just good preaching. Preachers are a dime a dozen, trust me. Just a dime a dozen. You get preachers anywhere. What you're looking for is the power.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
I could listen to podcasts, man, if I want to hear good preaching. I don't ever have to leave my house if I want good preaching. But if I want power, I have to go where the power is. So my word to you today is this. My encouragement to you today is this: to tap into the power source.
Amen.
All that junk up there, all that equipment up there. You know what it all needs? Every one of those stuff up there. None of that stuff works without power. You got to plug it in somewhere. You got cords running everywhere in this church. Cords everywhere. Because you have to have power to do anything. The same is true in the kingdom of God. You have to have power to do anything. There's an old saying that says, don't be offended. There's an old saying that says, you don't really need God to run a church. Some people can run a church service even without the presence of God. Because you just come in and do routine. You do what you did last week. What the church needs today is power. Plugging into the source, who is Christ himself. Now, here's what's happening. I want you to put yourself in Jairus' shoes. Remember? 12-year-old dying? If I'm falling on my face before the Master, and I'm asking him, would you please come pray for my daughter? She's dying. She's only 12. It's not like she has the sniffles or a hangnail. She's dying. Now this woman comes up with the issue of blood. Let me tell you what that is. It's an interruption. Jesus, please don't take time. I know she's bleeding. Please don't take time. Because after all, my daughter's dying. She only has minutes to live. Have you ever noticed about God's timing versus your timing? If you've been saved more than 3 days, you get that, right? Yeah, you get that. We always have to keep adjusting our timetable to the timetable of God, not our timetable. So here's what's happening. This woman comes, she messes the whole deal up. Interrupting Jesus on his way. Okay, now they had to stop, verse 24. And Jesus said, who touched me? I love this. Hundreds of people all around him, bumping, crowding, pushing. And he says, who touched me? So the disciples were a logical group of people, the disciples were. And while they were all denying it, Peter said to Master, come on, really? The people are crowding, pressing in on you. But Jesus said, someone did touch me. For I was aware that power has gone out of me. Here's my prayer for us. That you have power to go out of you.
Hallelujah.
That collectively, corporately, as the redeemed community, we possess enough power for there to be power to go out of. The other day I went to charge my phone with my portable charger. My portable charger was dead. Didn't do a thing for my phone at all. Because it was dead. So today I'm going to challenge you to go to prayer and ask God to give you power, not so you can have the power for yourself, but so that you can do kingdom work.
Amén. Amén. Aleluya. Santo.
That's just some power went out of me, I know that. Then the woman saw that she had not escaped the notice. She came trembling and fell down before him and declared in the presence of all the people and reasoned why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Just like that. She didn't have to do it at church. Didn't have to do an offering. Nothing, man. That was it. Free power. Freely you have received, freely give.
Hallelujah.
That's the end of the story. That's it, her story. So let's now join the original story of Jairus. While he was still speaking, someone came out from the house of the synagogue official saying, your daughter has died. Do not trouble the teacher anymore. Take this out of the story of the Bible, man. Put it in your own life. Daughter's died. Your world just fell apart. If you're a parent in the room, you understand your world has just fallen apart.
Yes.
Something traumatic has just happened. And let me tell you about trauma. When trauma happens, the enemy loves to come in and take advantage of the trauma. What are the emotions? Tell me, what are the emotions you think Jairus could have felt at that moment in time? Anger. You bet. Despair. That's what I'm looking for. Where's that much at? Hopelessness. So I want you to think about how he could have looked at the girl, at the woman, whose blood just stopped. I'm thinking about the bitterness of her. How easy it would be to look at in the carnal nature of a man who's just lost his daughter, who's only 12 years old. She's not yet been bat mitzvahed. Has not yet been a daughter of the covenant. That's another year away. Lost her lease on life at such a young age. And this woman, who who interrupted the whole deal. If she had just shut up and gone away, Jesus could have gone to my house. You know, sometimes we so God-ize the Bible, we forget to make it human. Right? We elevate everything to, oh, people walk across, oh. No, man, when you lose your daughter, it's a real deal.
That is true.
While he was still speaking, someone came from the house. Oh, I said that already. Verse 50. But when Jesus heard this, he answered and said, do not be afraid any longer. Only believe and she will be made well. Only believe and she will be made well. Well, the story goes on. He goes in and he says, Tabitha, arise. She raises from the dead just like that. Because when God touches death, death changes from death to life.
Amen.
Sometimes what happens is we see interruptions. And I'm praying for God to help me meet my bills. And something interrupts that. Julio comes in the room and starts bragging about how God just helped him with 15 new clients. I'm thinking, Lord, did you forget? I was first in line. There's nothing worse than a line cutter. I was not too long ago, I was at a museum and I was in line. At this long line. It was like a half-hour line. I'm in line at the cafeteria. And some woman comes right in and she cuts the whole line like she has privilege. But the lady who was running the line said, you have to go way back there. Put her right in her place. And I thought to myself, get back into the end of the line. Julio, get to the end of the line. I was here. Joyce is thinking, I was here. Jesus comes along and does what Jesus wants to do. You know why? Because he's sovereign and he can.
Amen.
Because what we do is we have to trust God that everything works out according to his will for our life.
That's right.
And not try to fix it ourselves. Have you ever tried to do that?
Oh.
Don't even raise your hand. Because I know some of you tried. Jesus doesn't show up just in time, so we try to fix it ourselves. Today, we have 22 Arab nations upon the earth because one guy tried to fix it for God. That's right. Abraham says, I got this. I've been waiting a long time, man. You promised me a baby, and then you're not coming through. Let me take the Hagar woman. We could do the deal, and we'll have a child. And he does, and they do, and it's battling, fighting ever since. So, tell me what you think I'm trying to say to you today. What do you think my message is about today?
Faith in God's power.
What?
Faith in God's power.
God's power. Wait on God.
He's our fixer.
He's our fixer.
And interruptions will come.
Interruptions will come. He's never late.
Your time is not his time.
My time is not his time. Your time is not his time. Keep believing. That's good.
Keep the faith.
Keep the faith.
He will never forsake you.
Say it again.
He will never forsake you.
He'll never forsake you. That's right.
We're the only ones who see the line.
Yeah, that's we're the only ones. That's good. This is the line. That's good. You got to plug in. You got to plug in. And here's how I think, and I'll close with this. You don't plug in on Sundays. Whoops. You know, I said what somebody does eventually. All right. If you only plug in on Sundays, it's like that battery charger. I tried to plug my phone in, but it only got plugged in a long time ago, so it didn't help me out at all. The best way to keep your battery charged is to plug in every day. Every day. So, Father, thank you for today. But I think that we've had a great time today just hanging out in an intimate setting. We didn't even need the instruments up there. Didn't need musicians and singers. Just hung out in your presence and presence of one another. But that is so powerful. As we talk about engaging our community, Lord, we're going to talk about a hungry crowd and a bloody woman and a loose woman and a crook. But you walked among all those kind of people because you are simply representing your Father. So Lord, I pray today for us that we would simply represent you. In order to completely represent you, we need to be plugged into the power. So Holy Spirit, I pray that today every one of us would make a prayer that you would plug us in right now. Jesus, you are so good to us. You love us so much. We thank you and give you praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.